Book 21. The Axe Contest. Odysseus reveals himself to Eumaeus and Philoetius. Athena, the goddess, now planted a clever idea in Penelope's mind. She would challenge the suitors to a contest of skill with Odysseus's bow and iron axes, a plan designed to lead them to their doom. Penelope went upstairs and retrieved the storeroom key, a beautiful thing made of bronze with an ivory handle. Then, with her maidens, she headed to the storeroom at the far end of the house. This was where her husband's treasures were kept: gold, bronze, and finely crafted iron. His mighty bow was there too, along with a quiver full of deadly arrows. This bow and these arrows had been a gift from Iphitus, son of Eurytus, a friend Odysseus met in Lacedaemon. They had crossed paths by chance in Mycenae, at the house of Ortilochus. Odysseus was there to collect a debt from the Messenians, who had stolen 300 sheep from Ithaca and sailed away with them and their shepherds. Odysseus, still a young man, had traveled far to reclaim these sheep, sent on this mission by his father and the other chieftains. Iphitus was also there, trying to get back 12 lost brood mares and their mule foals. Sadly, these mares ultimately led to his death. He had visited the house of mighty Heracles, son of Zeus, a hero famous for his incredible feats. But Heracles, to his eternal shame, killed Iphitus even though he was a guest. He showed no fear of divine vengeance and no respect for the hospitality he had offered. He simply murdered Iphitus and kept the mares for himself. It was while trying to reclaim these mares that Iphitus met Odysseus. He gave Odysseus the bow that the great Eurytus had once used, a bow Eurytus had left to his son upon his death. In return, Odysseus gave Iphitus a sword and a spear. This exchange marked the beginning of a strong friendship between them, though they never had the chance to visit each other's homes. Heracles, son of Zeus, killed Iphitus before they could. Odysseus had not taken this special bow with him when he sailed for Troy. He used it while he was home, but he left it behind as a cherished keepsake from a dear friend. Penelope soon reached the storeroom's oak threshold. A carpenter had carefully planed it smooth and drawn a straight line to ensure its perfect alignment before setting the doorposts and hanging the doors. She untied the strap from the door handle, inserted the key, and pushed it firmly to slide back the bolts. The doors swung open with a loud groan, like a bull bellowing in a meadow. Penelope stepped onto the raised platform where chests held fine linen and clothes, stored with fragrant herbs. From there, she took down the bow and its case from the peg where it hung. She sat, placing the bow on her knees, and wept bitterly as she drew it from its case. Once her tears had subsided, she carried the bow and its quiver, filled with many deadly arrows, to the cloister where the suitors waited. Her maidens followed, carrying a chest filled with iron and bronze, treasures her husband had won as prizes. When she reached the suitors, she stood beside one of the pillars supporting the cloister roof. A veil covered her face, and a maiden stood on either side of her. Then she spoke.
"Listen to me, suitors,"
Penelope declared.
"You have shamelessly abused the hospitality of this house for too long, simply because its master is absent, and with no other excuse than your desire to marry me. Well, here is the prize you've been fighting for. I will bring out Odysseus's mighty bow. Whichever one of you can most easily string it and shoot an arrow clean through the holes of 12 axes, him I will follow. I will leave this house, the home of my rightful husband, a house so noble and rich. But even then, I know I will miss it, even in my dreams."
After Penelope finished speaking, she instructed Eumaeus to place the bow and the iron axes before the suitors. Eumaeus, tears streaming down his face, carried them out as she commanded. Beside him, Philoetius, the cowherd, also wept at the sight of his master's bow. But Antinous sharply rebuked them.
"You country bumpkins, you foolish simpletons.
Antinous sneered.
Why are you crying and adding to your mistress's sorrow? She already grieves enough over her lost husband. Sit down quietly and eat your dinner. If you want to cry, go outside, but leave the bow here. We suitors will have to compete for it with all our strength. Stringing this bow will be no easy task. None of us are as skilled with a bow as Odysseus was. I saw him myself when I was a child, and I remember him."
Antinous said this, but secretly, he fully expected to string the bow and shoot through the iron axes himself. In truth, he would be the very first to taste an arrow from Odysseus's hand. He was dishonoring Odysseus in his own home and encouraging the other suitors to do the same. Then Telemachus spoke up.
Great heavens!
He exclaimed.
Zeus must have stolen my wits. My dear, excellent mother says she will leave this house and marry again, yet here I am, laughing and enjoying myself as if nothing is happening. But suitors, since this contest has been agreed upon, let it begin. This challenge is for a woman whose equal cannot be found in Pylos, Argos, Mycenae, or even here in Ithaca or on the mainland. You know this as well as I do, why should I need to praise my mother? Come on, then, no more excuses for delay. Let's see who can string the bow. I will try it myself. If I can string it and shoot through the iron axes, I will not allow my mother to leave this house with a stranger, not if I can claim the prizes my father won before me.
As he finished speaking, Telemachus sprang from his seat, tossing aside his crimson cloak and drawing his sword from his shoulder. First, he lined up the axes in a neat row, placing them perfectly straight within a long groove he had dug. Then, he firmly packed the earth around them. Everyone was amazed to see him arrange the axes so orderly, especially since he had never seen such a thing done before. After this, he stepped onto the paved floor to try the bow. 3 times he tugged with all his might, trying to draw the string, and 3 times he had to give up, even though he longed to string the bow and shoot through the iron axes. He was attempting it for the 4th time, and he would have strung it if Odysseus had not subtly signaled him to stop, despite Telemachus's eagerness. So Telemachus spoke.
Alas!
He sighed.
It seems I am either destined to be forever weak and without skill, or I am still too young, not yet strong enough to defend myself if attacked. So, you others, who are stronger than I, try this bow and settle this contest.
He then set the bow down, leaning it against the door that led into the house, with an arrow resting against its tip. He returned to his seat and sat down. Antinous then spoke.
Now, each of you take your turn.
Antinous instructed.
Go around to the right, in the same order the cupbearer serves the wine, and try to string the bow.
The other suitors agreed. Leodes, son of Enops, was the first to rise. He was the suitors' sacrificial priest, and sat in the corner near the mixing bowl. He was also the only one among them who truly hated their wicked deeds and felt angry about their behavior. He was the first to take the bow and arrow, stepping onto the paved floor to try his luck. But he couldn't string the bow. His hands were weak and unaccustomed to hard labor, so they quickly grew tired. Leodes spoke to the suitors.
My friends,
He said,
I cannot string this bow. Let someone else try. This bow will surely take the life and soul from many of our leaders. It's better to die than to live after failing to win the prize we've strived for so long, the prize that brought us all here. Some of us are still hoping and praying to marry Penelope. But once you've seen this bow and tried it, you'll be better off wooing another woman and offering her bridal gifts. Penelope will marry whoever makes her the best offer and is fated to win her.
He set the bow down, leaning it against the door with an arrow resting against its tip. Then he returned to his seat. Antinous immediately rebuked him.
Leodes, what nonsense are you spouting?
Antinous demanded.
Your words are outrageous and unbearable. It makes me furious just to listen to you. Are you saying this bow will take the lives of many of our leaders, simply because you can't bend it? True, you weren't born to be an archer, but there are others here who will string it soon enough.
Then Antinous turned to Melanthius, the goatherd.
Hurry up.
He ordered.
Light a fire in the courtyard and place a seat covered with a sheepskin nearby. Also, bring us a large lump of lard from the house. Let's warm the bow and grease it. Then we can try it again and finally finish this contest.
Melanthius lit the fire and placed a sheepskin-covered seat beside it. He also brought a large lump of lard from the house. The suitors warmed the bow and tried again, but none of them were strong enough to string it. Still, Antinous and Eurymachus, the ringleaders and most prominent of the suitors, had yet to try. Just then, the swineherd and the cowherd left the cloister together, and Odysseus followed them. Once they were outside the gates and in the outer yard, Odysseus spoke to them quietly.
Cowherd.
Odysseus began.
And you, swineherd, I have something on my mind that I'm not sure whether to say or not, but I think I will. What kind of men would you be if some god suddenly brought Odysseus back here? Tell me, whose side would you take? The suitors or Odysseus's?
Father Zeus.
The cowherd replied.
I wish you could make that happen. If only some god would bring Odysseus back, you would see how fiercely I would fight for him with all my might.
While Eumaeus prayed to the gods for Odysseus's return, Odysseus saw their true hearts. He then said,
I am Odysseus. I have faced countless trials, but after 20 long years, I have finally returned to my homeland. Of all my servants, only you two are happy about my return. I haven't heard anyone else praying for me, so I will tell only you two the truth. If the gods deliver the suitors into my hands, I will find wives for both of you. I will give you homes and land close to my own. You will be as dear to me as brothers and friends to Telemachus. Now I will show you undeniable proof so you can recognize me and be sure. Look, this is the scar from the boar's tusk that tore me when I was hunting on Mount Parnassus with Autolycus's sons.
As he spoke, Odysseus pulled aside his ragged clothes, revealing the large scar. When they examined it closely, both men grabbed Odysseus and burst into tears. They hugged his head and shoulders, kissing him. Odysseus returned their affection, kissing their hands and faces. Their sorrow would have lasted until sunset if Odysseus hadn't stopped them. He said,
Stop your weeping.
Odysseus commanded.
Someone might come outside, see us, and tell those inside. When you go in, go separately, not together. I will go first and you two follow later. And here is our plan. The suitors will all try to stop me from getting hold of the bow and quiver. So, Eumaeus, when you are carrying the bow, place it directly into my hands. Tell the women to close the doors of their rooms. If they hear any sounds of fighting or shouting from inside the house, they must not come out. They must stay quiet and continue their work. And Philoetius, I charge you to firmly lock the gates of the outer courtyard and secure them at once.
After giving his orders, Odysseus returned to the house and sat back in his place. A short while later, his two servants followed him inside. At that moment, Eurymachus held the bow. He tried to warm it by the fire to make it more flexible, but he still couldn't string it. He was deeply disappointed. With a heavy sigh, he said,
I grieve for myself and for all of us. It's sad to give up on the marriage, but that's not the biggest problem. There are plenty of other women in Ithaca and elsewhere. What truly bothers me is that we are so much weaker than Odysseus that we can't even string his bow. This will bring shame upon us for generations to come.
Antinous said.
That's not true, Eurymachus, and you know it yourself. Today is a feast day throughout the land, honoring the god Apollo. Who could possibly string a bow on a day like this? Let's put the bow aside. The axes can stay where they are, no one is likely to come and take them. Let the cupbearers serve drinks so we can make our offerings to the gods, and let's forget about the bow for a while. Tomorrow, we'll tell Melanthius to bring us some of his best goats. Then we can offer the thigh bones to Apollo, the mighty archer, and try the bow again to finish this contest.
The rest of the suitors agreed with his words. Then, servants poured water over the guests' hands. Pages filled the mixing bowls with wine and water, then served each man his drink after they had made their offerings to the gods. After they had made their offerings and drunk as much as they desired, Odysseus cleverly said,
Suitors of the illustrious queen, please listen to what I have to say. I especially appeal to Eurymachus and to Antinous, who just spoke so reasonably. Stop trying the bow for now, and leave this matter to the gods. Tomorrow morning, the gods will grant victory to whomever they wish. But for this moment, please give me the bow. I want to test the strength of my hands before all of you. I want to see if I still have as much power as I used to, or if my long travels and hardships have drained all my strength.
This made all the suitors very angry, for they feared Odysseus might actually string the bow. Antinous fiercely rebuked him, saying,
"You wretched creature, you don't have a shred of sense in your entire body. You should consider yourself lucky to have dined unharmed among your betters, receiving the same amount of food as us, and even hearing our conversations. No other beggar or stranger has been allowed to hear what we discuss. Clearly, the wine is ruining you, as it does all who drink too much." The centaur Eurytion, when he was staying with King Perithous of the Lapithae, also lost his mind because of wine. When the wine went to his head, he went mad and committed all sorts of evil deeds in King Perithous' house. The heroes gathered there were furious, they rushed at him, cut off his ears and nostrils, and dragged him out the door. He left crazed, having lost his understanding, and paid the price for his crime. From that day on, war began between humans and centaurs, all because of his drunkenness. Likewise, I can tell you that it will go very badly for you if you string this bow. No one here will show you any mercy. We will immediately ship you off to King Echetus, who kills everyone who comes near him. You will never return alive. So, drink your wine and be quiet, without getting into a quarrel with men younger than yourself."
Then Penelope spoke to him.
"Antinous,"
She said,
"it is not right for you to treat any guest of Telemachus who comes to this house so poorly. Even if this stranger proves strong enough to string Odysseus's mighty bow, do you truly believe he would take me home with him and make me his wife? The man himself wouldn't even dream of such a thing. So, none of you need to let that disturb your feasting. That's completely unreasonable." Queen Penelope.
Eurymachus answered,
"We don't believe this man will take you away with him, that's impossible. But we are afraid that some of the common folk, men or women among the Achaeans, might go gossiping and say, 'Those suitors are truly pathetic. They courted the wife of a brave man, but not one of them could string his bow. Yet, a shabby wanderer who came to the house strung it at once and shot an arrow through the iron rings. Such talk would bring great shame upon us." Eurymachus.
Penelope answered,
"People who persist in eating up a great chieftain's estate and dishonoring his house should not expect others to think well of them. So why should you mind if people talk as you think they will? This stranger is strong and well-built, and he says he is of noble birth. Give him the bow, and let's see whether he can string it or not. I promise you, and it shall surely be, that if the god Apollo grants him the glory of stringing it, I will give him a sturdy cloak and tunic. I will also give him a spear to ward off dogs and robbers, and a sharp sword. I will give him sandals, and I will ensure he is safely sent wherever he wishes to go."
Then Telemachus said,
Mother, I am the only one, either in Ithaca or in the islands opposite Elis, who has the right to decide who gets this bow or who doesn't. No one can force me one way or the other, not even if I choose to give the stranger the bow as a complete gift. So, Mother, go inside the house and busy yourself with your daily duties, your loom, your distaff, and the care of your servants. This bow is a man's matter, and above all, it is my matter, for I am the master of this house."
Penelope, amazed, returned into the house, taking her son's words to heart. Going upstairs with her handmaids into her room, she mourned her dear husband until the goddess Athena sent sweet sleep over her eyelids. Now the swineherd Eumaeus picked up the bow, intending to take it to Odysseus, but the suitors clamored at him from all parts of the hall. One of them shouted,
"You idiot, where are you taking that bow? Are you out of your mind? If the god Apollo and the other gods grant our prayer, your own hunting dogs will drag you to some quiet place and tear you to death."
Eumaeus was frightened by their collective shouts and put the bow down right there. But Telemachus shouted at him from the other side of the hall, threatening him.
"Uncle Eumaeus, ignore them and bring the bow. Even though I'm young, I'll pelt you with stones and drive you back to the countryside, for I am the better man of the two. I wish I were as much stronger than all the other suitors in this house as I am than you. Then I would quickly send some of them away, sick and sorry, for they are always plotting evil.
When Telemachus spoke like this, they all laughed heartily, which put them in a much better mood toward him. So Eumaeus brought the bow and placed it in Odysseus's hands. After this, he called Euryclea aside and said to her,
Euryclea, young master Telemachus says you are to close the doors of the women's quarters. If you hear any groaning or commotion, as if men are fighting inside the house, you must not come out. You must stay quiet and continue your work where you are.
Euryclea did as she was told and closed the doors of the women's quarters. Meanwhile, Philoetius quietly stepped outside and securely locked the outer courtyard gate. A papyrus rope lay by the entrance, and he used it to tie the gate shut. Then he came back inside and returned to his seat. He watched Odysseus closely. Odysseus held the bow in his hands, turning it over and over, carefully checking if worms had gnawed at its horns while he was away. Then one of the suitors turned to the person next to him and said,
That old man must be an expert archer. Maybe he has a bow like that at home, or he wants to make one himself. The way that old wanderer handles the bow, he looks like a master craftsman.
Another suitor said,
I hope he has as little success in other things as he does in stringing this bow.
Odysseus picked up the bow and examined it. Then, as easily as a skilled bard strings a new lyre and fastens the ends, he strung the bow. He drew the string with his right hand to test it. A beautiful sound, like the twittering of a swallow, rang out. Hearing it, all the suitors turned pale with shock. Just then, Zeus sent a loud clap of thunder as a sign. Odysseus rejoiced greatly in his heart at this good omen from Zeus. He picked up an arrow that lay on the table. He placed it on the center of the bow. Still seated, he drew the arrow's nock and the string firmly towards himself. Once he had aimed, Odysseus shot the arrow. It pierced every one of the handle holes of the axes, from the first to the last, and finally flew out into the outer courtyard. Odysseus said to Telemachus,
Telemachus, your guest has not disgraced you. I didn't miss my aim, and I didn't take long to string the bow. I am still strong, not weak as the suitors mock me for being. Now, before the sun sets, it's time for the Achaeans to prepare supper. After that, we'll enjoy ourselves with song and dance, the crowning ornaments of any feast.
As he spoke, Odysseus made a sign with his eyebrows. Telemachus immediately strapped on his sword, grasped his spear, and stood armed beside his father's seat. Book 22. The killing of the suitors. The disloyal maids cleanse the hall and are then hanged. Odysseus threw off his old rags and leapt onto the wide floor with his bow and quiver full of arrows. He poured the arrows onto the floor at his feet and declared,
The great archery contest is over. Now, let's see if Apollo will grant me the power to hit another target, one that no man has ever struck before.
Odysseus immediately aimed a deadly arrow at Antinous. Antinous was just lifting a two-handled golden cup to drink his wine. The cup was already in his hands. He never saw death coming. Among all the feasting guests, who would imagine that one man, no matter how brave, would stand alone and kill him? The arrow struck Antinous in the throat, and the arrowhead went clean through his neck. He collapsed instantly, dropping the cup from his hand. A thick stream of blood gushed from his nostrils. He kicked the table away, sending everything on it crashing to the floor. Bread and roasted meats were scattered and soiled. The suitors erupted in chaos when they saw one of their own struck by an arrow. They all sprang from their seats in dismay, looking frantically at the walls, but there were no shields or spears to be found. They glared at Odysseus, furious, and shouted,
Stranger, you'll pay dearly for shooting people like this. You won't live to see another contest. You're a dead man. The one you killed was the finest young man in Ithaca, and for this crime, vultures will feast on your body.
They spoke this way because they believed Odysseus had killed Antinous by accident. They had no idea that death was hanging over every single one of their heads. But Odysseus glared at them and spoke.
You dogs, did you really think I wouldn't return from Troy? You've squandered my wealth, forced my female servants to your beds, and tried to marry my wife while I was still alive. You feared neither gods nor men. Now you will die.
Odysseus's words turned them pale with terror. Every man frantically looked around, searching for a way to escape to safety. But only Eurymachus dared to speak.
If you are truly Lord Odysseus,
He began.
then your words are just. We have done great wrong in your lands and in your house. But Antinous, the ringleader of all our sins, already lies dead. Everything was his doing. He didn't truly want to marry Queen Penelope, he didn't care much for marriage at all. What he truly desired was something else entirely, and Zeus did not grant it to him. He wanted to kill your son and become the most powerful man in Ithaca. Now that he has met the death he deserved, please spare the lives of your people. We will make everything right and fully repay you for all we have eaten and drunk in your house. Each of us will pay a fine worth 20 oxen, and we will continue to offer you gold and bronze until your heart softens. Until we have done this, no one can complain about your anger towards us.
Odysseus glared at him again and said,
Even if you gave me everything you possess now, and everything you ever will possess, I will not stop my hand until I have made every single one of you pay in full. You must fight or try to run for your lives. But I promise you, not a single one of you will escape.
Their hearts sank as they heard his words. But Eurymachus spoke up once more.
My friends, this man will show us no mercy. He'll stand right there and shoot us down until every one of us is dead. So, let's fight back. Draw your swords, and use the tables as shields against his arrows. Let's rush him fiercely, drive him from the floor and the doorway. Then we can get into town and raise such an alarm that his shooting will surely stop.
No sooner had he finished speaking than he drew his sharp, double-edged bronze sword and, with a loud cry, charged at Odysseus. But Odysseus, without a moment's hesitation, shot an arrow that struck him in the chest. The arrow pierced his nipple and buried itself deep in his liver. He dropped his sword and collapsed, doubled over his table. In his death throes, he struck the ground with his forehead, sending the cup and all the food crashing to the floor. He kicked at the stool with his feet until his eyes finally closed in darkness. Just then, Amphinomus drew his sword and charged straight at Odysseus, trying to force him away from the doorway. But Telemachus was quicker. He struck Amphinomus from behind. The spear pierced him between the shoulders and went straight through his chest. Amphinomus fell heavily to the ground, striking the earth with his forehead. Telemachus quickly pulled back, leaving his spear in the body. He feared that if he paused to pull it out, one of the Achaeans might rush him, cutting him down with a sword or knocking him over. He ran straight back to his father's side and said,
Father, let me bring you a shield, 2 spears, and a bronze helmet for your head. I'll arm myself too, and bring armor for the swineherd and the cowherd. We all need to be armed.
Go quickly and get them.
Odysseus replied.
Do it before my arrows run out. If I'm left alone, they might manage to push me away from the door.
Telemachus did as his father commanded and hurried to the storeroom where the armor was kept. He chose 4 shields, 8 spears, and 4 bronze helmets with horsehair plumes. He brought them to his father as fast as he could and armed himself first. The cowherd and the swineherd also put on their armor and took their places beside Odysseus. Meanwhile, as long as his arrows lasted, Odysseus shot the suitors one by one, and they fell, piling up on top of each other. When his arrows ran out, he propped his bow against the end wall of the house, next to the doorpost. He then slung a sturdy shield, made of 4 layers of hide, over his shoulders. On his noble head, he placed a finely crafted helmet with a horsehair crest that nodded menacingly. He gripped 2 formidable bronze-tipped spears tightly. Meanwhile, there was a secret trapdoor in the wall, and at one end of the hall, an exit led to a narrow passage. This exit was sealed by a well-made door. Odysseus ordered Philoetius to guard this door, as only one person could attack it at a time. Then Agelos shouted loudly,
Can't someone go through the trapdoor and tell the people what's happening? Help would come at once, and we could quickly put an end to this man and his deadly archery. That won't work, Agelos.
Melanthius replied.
The entrance to that narrow passage is dangerously close to the outer courtyard's entrance. Even one brave man could stop any number of people from getting in. But I know what I'll do. I'll bring you weapons from the storeroom. I'm certain Odysseus and his son have hidden their arms there.
With that, Melanthius, the goatherd, slipped through the back passages of Odysseus's house and headed to the storeroom. There, he chose 12 shields, along with 12 helmets and spears. He brought them back as quickly as possible and handed them over to the suitors. Odysseus's heart sank when he saw the suitors putting on their armor and brandishing their spears. He instantly realized the immense danger they were in. Odysseus turned to Telemachus and said,
Someone among the women inside is helping the suitors against us, or it could be Melanthius himself.
Telemachus replied,
Father, the fault is mine. It's entirely my fault. I left the storeroom door open, and they were sharper than I was. Eumaeus, go and close the door. Then check to see if it's one of the women, or if it's Melanthius, Dolios's son, as I suspect.
They were still talking when Melanthius headed back to the storeroom for more weapons. The swineherd Eumaeus saw him. He turned to Odysseus, who was beside him, and said,
Your Majesty Odysseus, brave son of Laertes, it's that villain Melanthius, just as we suspected. He's going to the storeroom. If I can overpower him, should I kill him? Or should I drag him here so you can take your own revenge for all the evil he's done in your house?
Odysseus replied,
Telemachus and I will hold these suitors in check, no matter what they do. Both of you go back and bind Melanthius's hands and feet behind his back. Throw him into the storeroom and lock the door tightly. Then tie a rope around his body and hang him from a high pillar, close to the rafters. He will die slowly in agony.
They immediately did as Odysseus had commanded. They headed to the storeroom and entered before Melanthius even saw them. He was busy searching for weapons deep inside the room. So the two men stood on either side of the door and waited. A moment later, Melanthius came out. He held a helmet in one hand and an old, dry-rotted shield in the other. Laertes had used that shield when he was young, but it had been discarded long ago, and its straps had come undone. The two men pounced on him. They grabbed him by the hair and dragged him, struggling, to the ground. They bent his hands and feet tightly behind his back and bound them painfully, just as Odysseus had ordered. Then they tied a rope around his body and hoisted him up a high pillar close to the rafters. The swineherd Eumaeus then shouted triumphantly at Melanthius,
Melanthius, you'll spend the night on a comfortable bed, just as you deserve. When morning comes from the streams of Oceanus, you'll know very well it's time for you to drive in the goats for the suitors' feast.
They left Melanthius in cruel bondage. Then, having put on their armor, they closed the door and returned to take their places beside Odysseus. The four warriors now stood in the cloister, fierce and full of fury. However, the suitors in the main hall were still brave and numerous. Just then, Athena, daughter of Zeus, approached them. She had taken on the voice and form of Mentor. Odysseus was glad when he saw her. He said,
Mentor, please help me. Don't forget your old comrade, who has done you many favors. Besides, aren't we age mates?
But all the while, Odysseus was certain she was the goddess Athena. The suitors on the other side raised an uproar as soon as they saw her. Agelos was the first to criticize her.
Mentor,
He shouted,
don't let Odysseus trick you into siding with him and fighting us suitors. Here's what we'll do. Once we've killed this father and son, we'll kill you too. You'll pay for it with your life. After we kill you, we'll confiscate all your property, both inside and outside your house, and combine it with Odysseus's wealth. Your sons and daughters won't live in your house, and your wife won't be able to live in the city of Ithaca.
This made the goddess Athena even more furious. She scolded Odysseus angrily.
Odysseus,
She said,
your strength and prowess are not what they were when you fought the Trojans for 9 long years for noble Helen. Back then, you killed countless enemies, and Priam's city fell because of your cunning plans. So why have you so lamentably lost your courage now? You are here in your own home, on your own land, facing these suitors. Come on, my brave friend, stand by my side and watch how Mentor, son of Alcimus, fights your enemies and repays your kindness.
But the goddess Athena would not grant him full victory just yet. She wanted to test the prowess of Odysseus and his brave son even further. So, she flew up to one of the rafters in the cloister roof. She sat there, transformed into a swallow. Meanwhile, on the suitor's side, Agelos son of Damastor, Eurynomus, Amphimedon, Demoptolemus, Pisander, and Polybus son of Polyctor bore the brunt of the fight. Among all those still fighting for their lives, they were by far the most valiant. The others had already fallen under Odysseus's arrows. Agelos shouted to them,
"Friends, he'll soon have to stop fighting. Mentor has left, doing nothing but bragging. They are standing at the doors with no support. Don't all aim at him at once. Instead, 6 of you throw your spears first. See if you can win glory by killing him. Once he falls, we won't need to worry about the others."
They threw their spears as Agelos commanded, but the goddess Athena made them all useless. One hit the doorpost. Another struck the door. The pointed shaft of yet another hit the wall. As soon as they had avoided all the suitors' spears, Odysseus said to his men,
Friends, I think we'd better throw our spears into their midst now. Otherwise, they'll finish all the harm they've done to us by killing us outright.
So they aimed straight ahead and threw their spears. Odysseus killed Demoptolemus. Telemachus killed Euryades. Eumaeus killed Elatus. The stockman Philoetius killed Pisander. All of them fell dead to the ground. As the other suitors retreated into a corner, Odysseus and his men rushed forward. They pulled their spears from the bodies of the dead and took them back into their hands. The suitors threw their weapons once more, but the goddess Athena made most of their attacks miss. Some spears struck the cloister pillars. Others hit the door. Another sharp spear struck the wall. Still, Amphimedon managed to lightly graze the skin on Telemachus's wrist. Anticypus succeeded in scratching Eumaeus' shoulder above his shield, but that spear flew on and fell to the ground. Then Odysseus and his men fiercely charged into the crowd of suitors. Odysseus hit Eurydamas. Telemachus hit Amphimedon. Eumaeus hit Polybus. Next, the stockman hit Ticypus in the chest and taunted him, saying,
"Foul-mouthed son of Polytherses, don't be so foolish as to curse wickedly another time. Let your words follow heaven's will, for the gods are much stronger than men. I give you this advice as a gift. It repays you for kicking Odysseus when he was begging in his own house."
As the stockman spoke, Odysseus stabbed Damastor's son with a spear in close combat. Telemachus hit Leocritus, son of Evenor, in the belly. The spear pierced him completely. Leocritus fell forward, face first, to the ground. Just then, the goddess Athena, from her seat on the rafter, raised her deadly aegis shield. The suitors' hearts quailed in terror. They fled to the other end of the courtyard like a herd of cattle maddened by gadflies during the longest days of early summer. It was like eagle-beaked, hook-to-lone vultures from the mountains swooping down on small birds. These birds cowered in flocks on the ground. They could neither fight nor fly, and onlookers enjoyed the sight. Odysseus and his men likewise fell upon the suitors, striking them down on all sides. Horrible groans erupted as their brains were crushed, and the ground was soaked with their blood. Then Leota caught Odysseus's knees and pleaded,
"Lord Odysseus, please have mercy on me and spare my life. I never wronged any of the women in your household, either in word or deed. In fact, I tried to stop the others. I saw what they were doing, but they wouldn't listen to me. Now they are paying for their folly. I was their sacrificing priest. If you kill me, I will die without having done anything to deserve it. I will receive no thanks for all the good I tried to do."
Odysseus looked sternly at him and replied,
If you were their sacrificing priest, then you must have prayed many times that it would be a long time before I returned home. You must have prayed that you might marry my wife and have children by her. Therefore you must die.
After saying this, Odysseus picked up the sword that Agelos had dropped when he was killed. It was lying on the ground. He then struck Leota on the back of his neck. Leota was still speaking, but his head rolled in the dust. The minstrel Phemius, son of Terps, had been forced by the suitors to sing to them. Now he tried to save his life. He stood near a secret door, holding his lyre. He hesitated, wondering whether to flee out of the cloister and sit by the altar of Zeus in the outer courtyard. Both Laertes and Odysseus had offered many ox bones there. Or should he go straight to Odysseus and grasp his knees? In the end, he decided it was best to grasp Odysseus's knees. So he laid his lyre down between the mixing bowl and a silver-decorated chair. Then he approached Odysseus, grasped his knees, and said,
"Lord Odysseus, please have mercy on me and spare my life. If you kill a minstrel like me, who can sing for both gods and men, you will regret it later. I compose all my own songs, and heaven grants me all kinds of inspiration. I could sing to you as if you were a god. So please, don't be so quick to cut off my head. Your own son, Telemachus, will testify for me. I did not want to frequent your house and sing for the suitors after their meals. But they were too many and too strong, they forced me."
Telemachus heard him and immediately went up to his father.
"Stop!"
He cried.
"This man is guiltless. Don't harm him. And let's spare Medon too. He was always good to me when I was a boy. Of course, that's assuming Philoetius or Eumaeus hasn't already killed him. Or that he hasn't fallen in your path while you were raging through the courtyard."
Medon heard Telemachus's words. He had been crouching under a chair, hidden by covering himself with a freshly flayed heifer's hide. Medon threw off the hide. He approached Telemachus and grasped his knees.
"Here I am, young master,"
he said.
"So please, stay your hand and speak to your father. Otherwise, he will kill me in his rage against the suitors. They wasted his wealth and were so foolishly disrespectful to you."
Odysseus smiled at him.
Don't be afraid. Telemachus has spared your life. From now on, you'll see, and you can tell others how much better good deeds turn out than bad ones. So you and the bard, go out to the outer courtyard, away from this slaughter, while I finish my work here.
The two men rushed out to the outer courtyard. They sat by the great altar of Zeus, trembling with fear and looking around, still expecting to be killed. Odysseus carefully searched the entire courtyard to see if anyone had managed to hide and was still alive. But he found only bodies, all lying in the dust and covered in blood. They were like fish that fishermen had pulled from the sea and thrown onto the beach, gasping for water until the hot sun finally killed them. That's how the suitors lay, all piled up against each other. Odysseus turned to Telemachus.
Call nurse Euryclea. I have something to say to her.
Telemachus knocked on the door of the women's quarters.
"Hurry out,"
he called.
"You, the elder in charge of all the women in the house. Come outside, my father wants to speak with you."
When Euryclea heard this, she unlocked the door of the women's room and came out, following Telemachus. She found Odysseus standing among the corpses, covered in blood and grime like a lion that had just devoured an ox. His chest and cheeks were entirely bloody, making him a truly terrifying sight. Odysseus was stained with gore from head to toe. Seeing all the bodies and such a vast amount of blood, she realized a great deed had been done and was about to shout for joy. But Odysseus stopped her.
Nurse,
He said,
celebrate in silence. Control yourself and don't make a sound. It's wrong to gloat over the dead. Divine judgment and their own evil deeds brought these men to ruin. They disrespected everyone who came near them, rich or poor. They met a miserable end as punishment for their wickedness and foolishness. Now, tell me which of the women in the house behaved badly and which remained innocent.
"I'll tell you the honest truth, my son.
Euryclea answered.
There are 50 women in this house whom we teach to card wool and do all sorts of housework. Of these, 12 have behaved improperly and were disrespectful to me and Queen Penelope. They showed no disrespect to young Master Telemachus, because he has only recently grown, and the queen never allowed him to give orders to the female servants. But I should go upstairs and tell your wife everything that has happened, for some god must have put her to sleep.
Don't wake the queen yet.
Odysseus replied.
Instead, tell the women who behaved badly to come to me.
Euryclea left the hall to tell the women to come to Odysseus. Meanwhile, Odysseus called Telemachus, the shepherd, and the swineherd.
Begin.
Odysseus said,
To clear away the dead, and make the women help you. Then, get sponges and clean water to scrub down the tables and chairs. After you've thoroughly cleaned the entire hall, take those women into the space between the domed room and the outer courtyard wall. Then, stab them with your swords until they are completely dead, until they forget all their secret affairs with the suitors.
At this, the women came down together, weeping and wailing bitterly. First, they carried the dead bodies out and propped them up against each other in the gatehouse. Odysseus ordered them and made them work quickly, so they had to carry the bodies out. When they had finished this, they cleaned all the tables and chairs with sponges and water. Telemachus and the other two shoveled up the blood and grime from the floor, and the women carried it all away and put it outside. After they had made the whole place spotless and orderly, they took the women out. They trapped them in the narrow space between the wall of the domed room and the courtyard wall, so they couldn't escape. Telemachus said to the other two,
I won't let these women have an easy death. They were disrespectful to me and my mother, and they slept with the suitors.
With those words, he tied a sturdy ship's rope to one of the bearing posts that supported the roof of the domed room. He strung the rope high around the building, ensuring that none of the women's feet could touch the ground. Just as thrushes or doves beat against a net set for them in a thicket as they returned to their nest, meeting a terrible end, so too did the women, one by one, slip their heads into the nooses and die a most wretched death. Their feet twitched convulsively for a moment, but not for very long. As for Melanthius, they dragged him through the hall into the inner courtyard. There, they cut off his nose and his ears. They pulled out his guts and threw them raw to the dogs, and then, in a rage, they hacked off his hands and his feet. When they had finished this, they washed their hands and feet and went back into the house, for everything was now over. Odysseus said to his beloved old nurse, Euryclea,
Bring me sulfur, which cleanses all impurities, and fetch fire also, so I may burn it and purify these halls. Go, moreover, and tell Penelope to come here with her ladies in waiting, and call all the other maidservants that are in the house.
Everything you've said is true.
Euryclea answered.
But let me bring you some fresh clothes, a shirt and cloak. You shouldn't wear these tattered rags any longer. It's not proper.
First, light the fire,
replied Odysseus. She brought the fire and sulfur, as he had asked her, and Odysseus thoroughly cleansed the halls, the inner courtyard, and the outer courtyard. Then she went inside to summon the women and tell them everything that had happened. The women came from their rooms with torches in hand and crowded around Odysseus to embrace him, kissing his head and shoulders, grasping his hands, and hugging him. He remembered each and every one of them, and felt a surge of emotion, as if he might burst into tears.